You're waiting for something, aren't you? That moment when everything clicks into place, when the fear finally quiets down. When you wake up one morning and just know it's time. You've been telling yourself you need to be ready first, more prepared, more certain, more capable. And you genuinely believe that once you reach that magical state of readiness, you'll finally take action. But here's the truth that's going to sting a little. That moment isn't coming. Not because you're not capable, not because you're broken or behind, but because readiness isn't a feeling you arrive at. It's a trap disguised as wisdom, and every day you wait for it is another day you strengthen its hold on your life. Readiness isn't this internal state of confidence and clarity that naturally precedes action. Somewhere along the way, we got the definition completely backwards. We've been taught that successful people waited until they felt ready, and then they moved. But that's not how it works. That's never been how it works. The people you admire didn't feel ready when they started. They felt terrified. They felt unqualified. They felt like frauds waiting to be exposed. But they moved anyway, and the movement created the readiness, not the other way around. Think about the last time you actually felt ready for something significant in your life. Really ready. Most people can't identify a single example, because significant things don't come with readiness attached. Your first day of school, your first relationship, your first real job, becoming a parent if you have kids. Did you feel ready for any of it? Or did you just show up and figure it out as you went? Readiness is what you build through action, not what you achieve before it. But we've convinced ourselves that this time is different, that this goal requires a level of preparation that all those other life experiences somehow didn't, and that belief keeps you frozen. Here's how the trap actually functions. Your brain is designed to protect you, and it interprets anything unfamiliar as potentially dangerous. It doesn't distinguish between actual physical threats and the threat of embarrassment, failure, or discomfort. To your nervous system, starting that business you've been researching for 2 years registers the same way as encountering a predator, so it creates this incredibly sophisticated defense mechanism. It convinces you that waiting is strategic, that more preparation equals better outcomes. That feeling unready is a sign you need more time, more knowledge, more resources. And because this comes from a place of self-preservation, it feels wise. It feels responsible. It feels like you're being smart and careful, not scared and stuck. But watch what happens. You tell yourself you'll start when you've read 3 more books. You read them. Now you need to take another course. You take it, now you need to save more money. You save it. Now you need to wait for the right timing. The timing never comes because there's always another requirement your brain can generate. The goalposts don't just move, they multiply. And each time you meet one condition, your mind creates 2 more to keep you safe from the risk of actually beginning. This isn't laziness. This isn't lack of ambition. This is your survival mechanism doing exactly what it was designed to do, keeping you in the familiar even when the familiar is slowly suffocating who you're meant to become. The cruel irony is that you're working incredibly hard. You're consuming content, making plans, doing research. You're busy with preparation. But preparation without execution isn't progress. It's procrastination wearing a productivity mask. What this trap is actually costing you isn't always obvious in the moment. You think you're just postponing, delaying until conditions improve. But time isn't neutral. Every month you spend waiting for readiness is a month you're not building skills through real experience. Every year you spend preparing is a year you're not failing forward, not getting feedback from reality, not developing the resilience that only comes from actually doing the thing. Your competition isn't waiting. The people who will be where you want to be 5 years from now, they're not more talented than you. They're not more intelligent or better connected or luckier. They just started before they felt ready, and that head start compounds. While you've been perfecting your plan, they've been executing, learning, adjusting, improving. They've made mistakes you're still trying to avoid, and those mistakes taught them things no amount of preparation could have shown them. But the deeper cost isn't comparative, it's internal. Every time you choose waiting over action, you're training yourself to distrust your own capabilities. You're reinforcing the belief that you're not enough as you are right now. You're teaching yourself that comfort is more valuable than growth. And these lessons settle into your identity so quietly that you don't notice you're becoming someone who plans instead of someone who does. Someone who dreams instead of someone who builds. Someone who waits instead of someone who moves. So what happens when you finally break the pattern? When you start before you're ready? Everything changes, but not in the way you expect. You don't suddenly feel confident. You don't magically acquire all the skills you thought you needed. What actually happens is much more interesting. You discover that the gap between where you are and where you need to be is much smaller than your mind made it seem. That project you've been putting off for 6 months, you started and realized you can figure out most of it with what you already know. That conversation you've been dreading, you have it and discover you were capable all along. That business you've been researching endlessly? You launch a basic version and learn more in 2 weeks than you did in 2 years of preparation. The action itself generates clarity that no amount of thinking could have produced. You see what actually matters versus what you thought mattered. You identify real obstacles instead of imaginary ones. Your brain starts rewiring itself. Neural pathways that fired in response to uncertainty with anxiety begin firing with curiosity instead. Your tolerance for discomfort expands. Things that would have paralyzed you last month become minor inconveniences this month. You start developing what psychologists call self-efficacy, the deep knowing that you can handle what comes. Not because you've eliminated risk, but because you've proven to yourself that you can move through risk and survive. And here's what nobody tells you. The version of you that takes action before feeling ready becomes someone fundamentally different than the version that waits. Not better or worse morally, but functionally different in how you interface with reality. You become someone who creates instead of consuming, someone who tests ideas instead of perfecting them in theory, someone who builds momentum instead of waiting for motivation. The specific lies your brain tells you to keep you waiting need to be dismantled one by one. I need more money first. Do you? Or do you need to start with what you have and let the early stages generate resources for the later ones? Most successful ventures started with far less capital than you currently have access to. The limitation isn't usually financial, it's imaginative. You can't see how to begin small because you're fixating on the final form. I need more knowledge. About what specifically? Because general knowledge is infinite. You could study forever and never feel you know enough. But specific knowledge, the kind that's actually relevant to your next immediate step, that's limited. And most of it you can only acquire by taking that step and seeing what you need to learn next. The curriculum reveals itself through action. I need to wait for the right time. Define right time. Because if you're waiting for a moment when you have no other responsibilities, no competing demands, no uncertainty about the future, you're waiting for a fantasy. There's no right time. There are only times you choose to prioritize this over something else. And that choice is available right now, today, in the next hour. I need more confidence. Confidence doesn't precede action, it follows it. You build confidence by doing things while scared and discovering you survive. The confident version of you that you're waiting to become only emerges through the experiences you're currently avoiding. It's not a prerequisite, it's a result. These aren't just excuses, they're defense mechanisms, and they'll always have some truth to them, which makes them so effective. You could benefit from more money, more knowledge, better timing, more confidence. But benefit from isn't the same as require, and every day you confuse the two is another day you trade possibility for safety that isn't even real. Because staying where you are has risks too. The risk of regret, the risk of stagnation, the risk of reaching the end of your life and realizing you were always capable, you just never gave yourself permission to find out. Movement doesn't mean being reckless when you stop waiting. It doesn't mean ignoring legitimate preparation. It means recognizing that at some point, preparation becomes procrastination, and only you can identify when that line has been crossed in your specific situation. For most people experiencing this right now, that line was crossed months ago. You already know enough to take the next step, not the final step, not the 10th step, just the next one. What's one action you could take in the next 24 hours that moves you closer to what you want? Not a planning action, not a research action, an implementation action. Something that creates evidence in the real world that this thing exists beyond your imagination. It might be imperfect. It probably will be. That's not a bug. That's a feature. Because imperfect action generates real feedback. Perfect planning generates only more planning. Your readiness won't announce itself with a feeling of certainty. It will emerge from accumulated small acts of courage. Each time you choose action over comfort, you're not just moving toward your goal. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to feel ready to begin. And that identity shift is worth more than whatever outcome you're chasing. Because outcomes are temporary. Who you become in pursuit of them stays with you forever. The gap between who you are and who you're capable of being isn't bridged by waiting. It's bridged by moving, by starting messy, by learning in public, by being willing to be a beginner when being a beginner feels excruciating, by trusting that the path reveals itself to those who walk it, not to those who stand at the trailhead studying maps. You've been waiting for permission that's never coming, for certainty that doesn't exist, for a version of readiness that was always a mirage. But here's what's true. You're as ready as you're ever going to be before you start. Every additional piece of readiness you need will come from the experience of doing, not from the preparation beforehand. The fear you feel isn't a stop sign, it's a compass pointing toward growth. So the question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you're willing to stop using readiness as a reason to stay safe. Whether you're willing to become someone who moves before they're ready and builds readiness through movement. What are you starting today, even if you don't feel ready? Drop it in the comments. Your moment isn't coming, it's already here. Stop waiting for ready. Start building it.